So last time on WildChild, we have a record-breaking jump from Scituate Harbour through the Cape Cod Canal to the Saconnet River. The weather apps are warning us that there's nasty weather coming for several days. So today we want to make it from the Saconnet River about 40 nautical miles southwest to Montauk, Long Island, New York State, which seems like a safe place where we can hide out from the nasty winds for the next 3 or 4 days. So last time on WildChild, we motored our way into an anchorage in the Saconnet River. But here we're going to stray from the script. We're going to stray from the happy sailing is lovely script. Let's get to some reality here. We were on a boat in the North Atlantic, trapped together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, under extreme and difficult conditions constantly for months. It was very cold and the boat was constantly wet. What we don't talk about too often in the videos is that when the air is freezing cold and the water is freezing cold, the inside of the boat is absolutely covered in condensation. It means everything we own is soaking wet all the time, and now the mold is beginning to grow. There's water dripping off the walls, water dripping off the windows, water's in all the cupboards and drawers, condensation everywhere. We are really quite miserable on the boat. So we don't have a lot of video of this part because things went really bad on WildChild. Things went so severely bad that Michelle and I broke up. That was it, the end of the adventure. I've had it, I can't stand it anymore. I cracked like a hard-boiled egg. I need out. So we didn't film a lot, but we kind of think it's still important to try to tell you the story. Our plan for the day was a relatively easy 40 nautical mile sail to Montauk, Long Island. What ended up happening was that the wind forecast was wrong, the weather forecast was wrong, the ocean was nastier than expected, and about halfway between the Saconnet River and Block Island, New York, we realized we broke the radar arch. Something had gone seriously wrong. The davits had failed, the dinghy was now swinging, and the stainless steel cable between the dinghy davits to the radar arch had actually cracked through the radar arch pole, which meant that the entire solar array up top was in danger, but the dinghy was possibly going to fall off. It was terrible. It was a devastating blow. We seriously broke something on WildChild. We were really in danger of really losing the back end of WildChild. So let me try and explain a little better what that hairline crack in that pole really means. Here's what we learned after the fact. This is what happened. I'm a smart girl and a good engineer. When I actually had the radar arch built, I inserted a 1-inch stainless steel pole inside a 1.5-inch stainless steel pole. So it was actually a double pole, and I filled the gap between the two poles with styrofoam insulation, expandable foam. The arch was actually really strong, and the crack that you see in the diagram is only a crack in the outer pole. So it didn't fall apart, but it began to transfer all the pressure to the inside pole. So that's where the port side davit arm attaches to the back of the boat. It's super reinforced inside the boat to the fiberglass, but that's a pivoting joint with a central bolt. Despite there being Loctite and a locking washer to squeeze those two together to hold the teeth locked together to prevent it from pivoting, the rolling motion of the ocean and the swinging motion of the dinghy on the davits for the last month or two had slowly been working the bolt loose. What happened was a space was opening up between the two joints, and we didn't notice that. And on this day, at a certain point, that joint failed and began to pivot. It essentially, the davit was pivoting downwards on the failed joint. This transferred all of the weight of the dinghy and the solar arch to the support cable, and the support cable attached to the radar arm. Well, the radar arm was never engineered to tolerate such severe stresses and forces. It was only supposed to support a little bit of extra weights when the davits flexed under pressure. It wasn't intended to support such extreme weight, and the outer pole cracked under the pressure. That hairline crack is a failure. A failure that could suddenly lead to the entire collapse of the davits, the solar arch, the radar arm dragging in the ocean behind us. It was serious. I understood immediately what this meant, and I understood immediately the significance of the danger. If the back half of the boat falls in the ocean's gonna rip it off, and this is gonna be bad. Michel didn't understand. He thought it was no big deal and thought it was fine, as always. I realized right away we have to take the heel out of the boat, we have to slow it down, we have to stop it from swinging around, we've got to get this under control, we got to get ropes, we got to support the davits, we got to use support lines or anything that we can to get the pressure off that radar arch before it collapses. Michel, as usual, just wanted to argue with me, give me a hard time and tell me everything was fine. No need to panic, no reason for a reaction. Michel can always be relied on to make a difficult situation harder by arguing and arguing and arguing. With Michel in my way making my life difficult, it took me about a half an hour to get a bunch of ropes and support lines rigged in every random direction, from the tow rail up to the arch, from the davits forward to the midsection of the ship, from side to side, everywhere so that I could possibly support the failing davit. I did. After half an hour it was secured as best we could, and all we could do now was get to safe harbor as soon as possible and get the weight of the dinghy off the davits. That's Block Island ahead there on the left in the background. I got the boat under control, we slowed it down, we tried to ease the motion of the boat. We just have to get upwind and get into safe harbor at Block Island. My spirit was crushed. I started to cry. I can't take this anymore. The sailing life is horrible, it's miserable, it's not a fun adventure, it's a difficult adventure. It's scary and hard, and Michel just makes it harder. I can't take this anymore. Of course, responsibility for fixing the damage is going to fall on my shoulders again, because, you know, I don't have enough stress in my life. That's it. I quit, I want out, I hate this. I had everything under control, but I really needed time to lick my wounds. I asked Michel to take the helm for an hour and give me a 1 hour break. I had to go downstairs, curl up in the fetal position, and just cry. I just had to vent out all the stress and frustration of months of misery. And something personal happened next. Michel knows what he did. That was it. That was the end of the relationship. We keep this thing real. So Lexi is having a bad day. I did break down crying earlier. Our boat is broken again. The pole there cracked because the davit arm bolt released. So then the davit wasn't holding, so all the weight of the dinghy got transferred to that pole. It was only supposed to be extra support, not total support. The winds are not what they were forecast to be. The sea conditions are nasty. We have swell fighting against wave. We're not going to make it to our destination of Long Island, our 40-mile plan. We are motor sailing, directly pounding into it because we got to get out of this. The pounding is very bad for our now weak davit system. So Block Island, off Long Island, there's this island called Block Island. It's a safe place to stop. We're going to go there and try to get the pole stainless steel welded and repair things. We're having a bad day. This fucking sucks. As we motored around to the protected side of Block Island, we knew that we were going to be okay. The sea conditions got calmer. We found the entrance to the Block Island Harbor, and we just motored our way in. I am so angry with Michel, I can't even talk to him.
Are we?
Bar Island, Big Island,
Wood Island?
I don't know.
Anyway, everything is closed, but there was people here, so we just did fill up with diesel and the gasoline too for the generator, and now we're topping the water tank. At least that's great.
It's out of season, so there's nobody on the island that can help us with the stainless steel welding. They really advise us we better go back north to Newport, Rhode Island. That's going to be the nearest stainless steel welder we're going to be able to find for hundreds of miles.
That's the repair we have to do.
Believe it or not, this is me pissed off beyond my breaking point. This is the, hard to see, but we split the pipe. That holds the radar arch. One of the other things that it does is that this support goes to a cable which helps sort of back up support the davits. Kind of see it better than this one. So the cable helps sort of give extra strength to the davits. And then that side with the radar arch cracked. So the question was like, why in the heck would that side fail, not the other side, because that's the lighter side of the dinghy. Turns out, as we investigate further, it actually is the davit that failed. That bolt came loose. Those aren't actually, those teeth aren't touching. So the bolt worked its way loose. The teeth aren't touching. So the davit actually failed. And when the davit failed, it's just pivoting, it's not actually grabbing anything. And then all the way to the dinghy got transferred onto that pole, which it was never intended to do. So all that strain eventually cracked it. Oh, things break. The ocean just beats the living daylights out of your boat, and out of you, and out of everything. It looks like I'm taping it back together with electrical tape, but I'm not. We found a piece of stainless steel pipe on the boat, got out the cordless grinder, got a cutting blade, and we split it down lengthwise to sort of make a splint. It's now on both sides along the crack, and there are pipe clamps, 4 pipe clamps holding them together, but I don't want the sharp edges of the pipe clamp rubbing on any ropes or rigging, so I just put electrical tape over the ends of the pipe clamp. It sort of braces the split. There, it's all the way around, so we're kind of only holding by the inside pole. There's no pressure on this anymore because we were able to tighten the davits. The bolts that came loose, because yes, Atkins and Hoyle sucks. So now we got to just try to return some pressure this way on this pole to pull this to get some strength or support added to the davits. You can see that our sail that day did not go anything according to plan. We were safe in Block Island for the night, but there was still very nasty weather coming. If we were going to return back towards the Saconet River to get to Newport, Rhode Island in the morning, we had to leave first thing in the morning and get there fast before the nasty weather had time to roll in. They wouldn't let us stay on the fuel dock for the night, so we pushed out at sunset and just grabbed the nearest mooring ball, and then we left first thing in the morning.